Hello, saints. This message is kind of a cross between a faith message and a general prepare sort of message. We're going to be taking a quick look at the biblical story in Genesis 41 through 47, about 7 years of feast followed by 7 years of famine. And we're going to be looking at how that relates to us today and how it relates to non-believers and people who worship in vain. Been meaning to get this video done for a while, but I've been kind of busy in the highways and the hedges and getting a lot done here before Passover. And so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Basically, if you take a look at Genesis 41, Pharaoh had a dream that the Most High Yah provided for him to get interpreted in regards to 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine. If we take a look at Egypt during that time in Pharaoh, Egypt was the superpower, and Pharaoh was the undisputed leader within the superpower. And so, let's take a look at what Pharaoh did and how those things worked out. I'm going to do so in a very cursory, quick way. Pharaoh appointed Joseph to take his credit, his treasury, his authority, and to buy all the surplus grain that was available during the years of feast to put back or provide for during the time of famine. Alright, they were not going out and taking food out of the supply to provide for those stores. They were buying surplus, and they were spending tax dollars, treasury funds, Pharaoh's money, and was putting that back. And that went on for 7 years. Now obviously, although it doesn't specifically relate this in the story, we can assume that, how assumptions go, but we can assume that not every piece of grain was purchased for that point, because clearly farmers would put some back and and so forth. Alright, so then we fast forward, and then here comes the famine, and that's a really quick gloss over there, but then comes the famine. Alright, so during the first year of the famine, pretty much things were good. People had money, treasure, gold, livestock, whatever. They could buy that food that did not grow, was not available through the normal grocery supply chain, from the farmer's market, guy down the road, local store, etc. And now as time passed on and we start getting into that second year, some important things happen that needs to be noted. The children of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites, moved out of the cities. They came out of the cities. And I just want to make a note, that they did go out to those rural areas where they could produce, take care of their own needs, be more self-sufficient in other ways instead of depending on buying. Alright, and as time goes on, the government's response is well organized, well orchestrated, and strong. And as the feast years go, famine years go on, they come and they buy all of their food because they can't grow any. Their farmers don't have any. Local farm markets closed. Local grocers closed. And so if we take a look at that, they buy all they have till they're out of money. Then they can't feed their animals, which is their last kind of like line of treasure, liquid assets. And so then they take their animals and they sell their animals or give their animals in exchange for grain, so they won't starve to death and die. And then time goes on, and now that grain is exhausted and they have no more animals, and so now they must sell their property, their homes, their apartments, their buildings, their farm, wherever they're living. They have to sell that to Pharaoh / give it to Pharaoh for grain. Government's still doing a great job. Everybody's still alive. No one's starving. Hooray for Pharaoh. Blah 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 blah. And then now they have no gold, no silver, no treasure, no animals. They've sold their farm, and so now what must they do? Now they sell their families and finally themselves into bondage for grain. Alright, 7 years of famine are up, and everything goes back to normal. with the minor exception that all of the unprepared people of Egypt are now treasureless, animalless, homeless, and sold into slavery. Alright, so what is this story telling us? What can we learn from this story? Alright, let's take a look now at America today. America is a superpower. Certainly we have a leader, and that is the president. And the president, you don't have to look very hard on the news to see that FEMA is making great steps in preparing for times of adversity for you. Not for me, but for you. Me, should I need it, but I pray to Yah and praise Him for His provision. Hopefully I won't. And so, when that emergency comes, and the government is, make no mistake, you can Google it, you can take a look, there's no bashful stance about it. They're buying up millions and millions and millions of meals. They're putting in camps. They're spending all this money to make all these preparations for emergencies. And if they know what emergency it is, they're not saying it's just emergencies in general. And so now let's say this emergency happens. Bang! Here we go. Alright, so how many of you are prepared for 30 days of no water, no power, no food? Not very many. And so the FEMA camps are going to open quickly when that emergency comes in. Or the emergency shelters, we'll call them. And you're going to have to leave where you're at. Abandon your property. Abandon your treasure. Abandon your animals. Take your families and go to that camp where you'll be beholden to the government for their rules, their provision, their providence. And now, depending on how long that goes on, we kind of go from here and there. But make no doubt, that story is very relevant for us today, because whomsoever you entrust with your well-being, if you take a hands-off approach, you're selling yourself into slavery to them, because they're responsible for you. And now, a kind master, that may be a good thing, if necessary. But I think, your own discernment, good common sense will let you know that a huge, multifaceted federal government bureaucracy is not looking out for anyone's best interest other than the one who's making the bureaucratic decision at that moment, making sure that, his power is not diminished, his group is still in charge, so forth. So what I would like for you to do is to be very mindful of Genesis 41 through 47, and spend some time in the Torah in reviewing 41 through 47, because I think it's very relevant to us today. A lot of people in churches today try to tell us, yeah, well, that was written, but it wasn't really written, in regards to us today. Or, that was written, but, this or that writer in the epistles and letters was actually writing to a specific group over here, and he really, it didn't apply to all of us. Keep in mind that the Most High Yah inspired this book, and there's nothing in here by accident, and there's nothing in here that's contrary to what He wishes in here. And so, if He wanted us to know that we should be prepared for times of feast and famine, if He wanted us to know, He would have put it in there. Genesis 41 through 47, it's there. If He wanted us to be mindful that if you trust Pharaoh, it may spare your life if Pharaoh is, obedient to Yah, which, in this case, he was obedient to that dream and its interpretation. But to those disobedient, rebellious Egyptians, and, we assume maybe some people of faith there, that did not take the repeated instruction that, be wise like the ant, prepare, take care of yourself, be independent, work together as community, be prudent. He clearly wants you to see what that will result in. It's imperative that you be able to take care of your family and yourself, and not be beholden to someone else. It doesn't matter if you have, $6,000 in cash if you don't have 2 pieces of bread and a glass of water, because you'll trade whatever you need to trade for your life, including your own freedom. So I encourage you to read Genesis 41 through 47. I encourage you to pay particular attention to what the Hebrews did in the 2nd year of the famine. I'm not going to tell you what it is, because I really want you to get into that word and read it. We have a habit as a people, as humans, to listen to what someone says and just go, oh yeah, that sounds good, and not do the due diligence of putting ourselves in the word. And I don't know about all of you that's watching this video, but I can tell you, people will lie to you about the word, and they give you their own interpretation, and they will tell you things exactly contrary to the word. Stupid things that are exactly opposite, no interpretation, just a bold-faced lie. So what I want you to do is read Genesis 41 through 47, and the 7 years feast, 7 years famine, and see what the Hebrew Israelites did during that 2nd year of that feast, at a famine stage. Be encouraged. The king is coming. I'm going to get some rest. I've been running up and down the road pretty hard here the past couple of weeks. It was a wonderful Sabbath today. And be encouraged, because the king is coming, and he has made ample warning and ample opportunity and ample abundance for you to prepare, make a way, and be obedient. Be encouraged. The king is coming.